So on for the two people that have never heard your name or who know who you are. I mean, the rest, you're a legend, you're an icon in the Web3 space. Everybody knows you wherever you go. People jump on you.
I wouldn't say they jump on me, but
um, Maybe for the two people that are listening and watching this call, either real life or right now, who are you? What are you doing?
who am I? Well, I mean, obviously everyone knows my name at this point, I guess. So, so who am I? That's a really rough question. Um, I think the best way to summarize what I do is that I've been in the crypto space since 2013, full time since 2016. Since then, I've launched projects, I've helped projects launch. Um, and yeah, since I guess through that, I was able to have a lot of different experiences within Web3. And now I'm a Web3 advisor for Azqira.
Fantastic. And so you're in the space since 2013, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, 2013. Yeah.
Fantastic. And obviously, back then it was the Wild West compared to what it is today. Um, and we know each other for 3 years now. It feels like forever. And in the Web3 space, I've never met a smarter person than you are. You've been part of some very exciting projects. In our case, when we look at our database and the people who follow us and really appreciate the project and what we're building, it tends to be more an older group. Like
Hmm.
we thought in the beginning we would be more closer to 25, 30-ish, but we are actually closer to 40, 45. And we
Hmm.
we get the feedback that they have experience in real estate, they love real estate, but they are sometimes a bit new to this whole blockchain, crypto, Web3 space. So what is a
Right.
token? What is a coin? What is even a blockchain? Where's the difference? And I know for you it's sometimes tough to speak with the normal people because you're so far in the rabbit hole that for you everything is clear. And I know when we're having lunch or dinner together, you must be sitting in front of me and be like, you understand, you get it. And I'm really trying, but you're doing a great job. You're very patient. So
I try to be.
let's.
Yeah.
I want to start with three simple questions, which I
Hmm.
asked my best friend, ChatGPT. What are the three easy questions a beginner would ask a blockchain expert to
Okay.
understand the topic better? The first question was, why is a blockchain considered secure and trustworthy? What is a blockchain? And what are real world applications beyond cryptocurrencies? And you can just
Hmm.
take the conversation wherever you want.
Well, I mean, I think every time I try to answer this question, I actually have different answers for it because I think, as you know, I haven't seen any industry that progresses as fast as Web3 or blockchain does, right? So, my answer would be different this week compared to last week, and it's going to be different next week as well. But so far, I think the best way to understand blockchain is that it's essentially a network of shared and distributed ledgers, right? So what that really means is that unlike traditional network where you rely on central servers to be able to store and process information, blockchain actually uses distributed nodes um, or I should say ledgers, or could be supernodes, stakers, where they are essentially individual components that actually store part of the data and the process the data together. So, a very easy example for this is let's say that you have put in, 50,000 euros in a bank account, and the bank says, "Yep, you have 50,000 euros in this bank account." For whatever reason, let's say that that bank is the only entity that actually has the information, and this information, for whatever reason, maybe the bank got burned or something, and then the information is lost. Now, because the record is nowhere to be found, you cannot prove to the bank that, hey, I had 50,000 euros because you will say that I have proof that I have 50,000 euros, and the bank will say, I don't have the proof, right? So in this case, then the most logical way to I guess combat this is to have a third party, right? The third party would guarantee that yes, this person had 50,000 euros. And then you make it more secure, which is you make, then you have fourth parties, fifth parties, sixth party. What about when you have 1,000 parties, 2,000 parties? Then essentially the information is extremely secure and therefore it's trustworthy because you have multiple witnesses for a particular information or transaction. I guess the real life use case of blockchain other than crypto, um, I think right now it's very difficult to find, to be honest, because we are beginning to see different institutions actually use blockchain technology to be able to either store data or to be able to process data. Some of the most recent fintech developments are seeing neobanks using blockchain technology to actually make their financial transactions a lot more efficient and more cost efficient for them as well. But still, I don't think this implementation of technology is not really mainstream.
Mm.
Um, and because for a simple fact that when you're using blockchain, you need to incentivize people, right, to be able to become these third-party watchers or witnesses. How do you incentivize them? You can incentivize them with cash, but it's going to take a while to send bank transfers. It's going to take a long time for some people to get money. Maybe if you send someone in euros, they'll get it probably very very soon. But if you send US dollars to somebody in Colombia, for example, it might take a while, right? So then the arrival of the incentive is actually varying from person to person. So I think this is why cryptocurrency is important because that you can essentially incentivize a lot of parties at the same time at the same speed. So I'm not exactly seeing implementation of blockchain other than crypto right,
Mm.
at the moment.
But I love the fact that um, you're immediately speaking about storage and database and not what a lot of people think, which is just purely a currency. So I get the question so often, but what coin is it? How can I pay with that? But that is just one application layer of blockchain technology. And you're building a super exciting project with Botanica. We've spoken about this at length. I don't know if I'm oversharing right now, and you want to keep it confidential what you're building at the moment. If yes, then I screwed that one up. Then that's on me. But Botanica is, besides Azqira, obviously also a use case where tokenization and blockchain technology has a very positive effect on a user's life by giving people access to a certain product or service. Do you want to share a little bit what you're doing with Botanica and what the application is that you're using there?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I would say I'm trying to sort of make it sound as simple as possible. So if you think of blockchain as a witnesses of information, right? And then you actually translate this information into sort of digital technology or this digital technological term, then that's data, right? So now think of blockchain as not only a distributed network of informations that can be processed. It can actually be a distributed network of file storage of storing certain data about you, right? It already does that. It already records transactions. You go on blockchain and that it shows you different blockchain transactions from the beginning of the network until now, right? So if we can store financial transactions, then you can also store data. And this is already a technology that is being used by I guess other distributed um, storage systems such as IPFS, Filecoin. There are a few big names out there. But I guess with Botanica, the main challenge that we are trying to solve is, okay, well, if you store your data in a decentralized network, what benefit do you get, right? It's why wouldn't you just use Google Cloud? Why wouldn't you just use, any essential services because it's just simply more convenient to use. And I think part of the answer is really in privacy, right? I think now we are entering a stage of industrial revolution where people's privacy is becoming even more increasingly important, mainly because it is becoming more threatened as well. Right? I mean, the rise of AI and especially the fact that people are feeding these AI, LLM models with massive amounts of private data. Like, you go to like Midjourney, this Discord channel, and people upload, photos of them to the Discord channel for everyone to see just to be able to use this AI solution. And I think this is going to be a very important challenge for everyone to be able to solve is that, okay, we want to use these amazing technologies, but how do we keep our data private? And I think part of that answer is really is in what Botanica is doing is, okay, we let people store the information in this distributed, I guess, nodes or storage nodes, and then we actually allow people to have private edge AI on there as well, so people can use AI solutions without sharing this data to any other big company, right? So you will actually have an AI that is personally catered to you. You feed it information, but it actually never leaves your domain. Almost like, think of it as your cold wallet, stores your own tokens. But in this case, your storage node actually stores your own information. It never leaves there. And then that information is used to train the AI model just for you, so that you can actually enjoy the benefits. So I mean, this is a bit of a long-winded I guess description, but this is yeah, I mean the what we are currently trying to solve at Botanica.
It's a super interesting and exciting project. I obviously know a bit more because we've spoken about it multiple times. I
Hmm.
want to quickly go into a different direction because you said it's like when you store your tokens in a cold wallet.
Hmm.
What is a cold wallet and what other wallet options are there? So just to go a bit like back
Okay.
into simpler terms, what is a cold wallet?
Hmm.
Centralized, decentralized. Why do sometimes I have access to my money, and why am I responsible for my own tokens? And
Hmm.
in which cases do others maybe have a bit more authority over my tokens?
Hmm.
Um,
Sure. I guess the best way to describe a cold wallet is that it's your own self-custodied crypto wallet that never gets connected to the internet.
mhm.
So a lot of people would think of MetaMask as a cold wallet, but it's actually not. It's kind of like a warm wallet. It's something in between, right? You have its own custody. You are the only one who can access the wallet. But a lot of people connect MetaMask to the internet to use different, applications to trade and do different things, right? So technically, it's not a cold wallet. Um, so the opposite of cold wallet is a hot wallet, which is a wallet that is usually always connected to the internet, right? So think of it as, let's look at exchanges, for example, right? So crypto exchanges. When you deposit money there, let's say that you have deposited, I don't know, 10 Bitcoins. Usually the exchange will take 10 Bitcoin and then store a part of that in a cold wallet, so to keep it safe from all the, potential hackers. But they'll also put some of this Bitcoin in a hot wallet so that it can be traded by other users, always connected to the internet. So this is the major difference between cold and hot wallet. When I did use the term self-custodied. So what that really means is that if it's a self-custody, you have the private key, you have the seed phrase. If you lose this, no one can restore it for you. No one can try to, crack it open for you.
Is that true?
It is true. I mean, if you, for example, let's say that uh, I was gonna say that, if you lose your private key, then you technically can never recover it. But if you actually have a private key of a wallet that was generated by the same device, then you can technically recover it through some different encryption methods. But I don't want to get too technical into that. Um, so, the opposite of that is, for example, when you're storing your crypto tokens in an exchange wallet, right? So you have a user account, right? You have a username, you have a password, and then the crypto token or the money's there for you. If you lose the password, you can recover the password, and then you can restore your funds there as well. But there's always, let's say, pros and cons to this, right? So I have seen a lot of examples where different exchanges get hacked for sometimes for millions and billions of dollars, and then it sent people's life into completely different direction than what they would have hoped for, right? But I have also seen cases where people lose their private key and seed phrase for very, very stupid reasons, and now they can see their own wallet on the blockchain. They see the money there, but they can never access it. I
I just
personally know a person who went through that, which is me. Um, so it
I
happened to
just
me
wanted
as
to ask.
well.
I just wanted to ask, did that ever happen to you? Because I feel
It
like
it
it has happened to everyone.
it did happen to me, of course. I think it happens to almost everyone, especially for those people who are using multiple wallets. I personally use, I guess on a day-to-day basis, more than 100 wallets. So for me, it's difficult to keep track of everything. And, I learned my lesson. It was a very expensive lesson, but I learned it. And yeah, since then, I try to back up my wallet as often as possible.
You're using more than 100 wallets on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Why?
For different reasons, I would say. Um, I guess the biggest reason really is that I want to be able to, um, let's say, I mean, hide is a bad word to use, but I want to stay as anonymous as possible on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, let's say that, I have made, personal investments into different projects, and therefore I had to give my main wallet address. Um, so now there is a link between me as a person and that anonymous blockchain wallet. Right now, the anonymity is broken. So I want to be able to kind of almost counteract with something to be able to keep my anonymity. So I think this is the biggest reason. The second biggest reason really is that I like to stay organized. So I have different wallets for different purposes. So yeah.
So I'm definitely supporting you in the anonymity by asking those questions also here on a live stream on a video that will be published in YouTube, huh?
Good luck trying to find my wallets, but yeah.
No, fantastic. No, I also have a story from myself. I also lost access to two wallets. Um, it hurt. It was painful, but it happens, And I think you have to go through that once at least,
Mm.
because then you know how it feels, and then you'll never lose any seed phrase, private key, any of that like again. Um,
Yeah.
so let's divert a bit to another topic, because there are many different chains, and people, when they speak of blockchain, some of them think it's one blockchain. Who owns it? Who generates it? Who builds it? What is it even? But there are multiple chains.
Hmm.
Maybe let's start with the five most common ones, and what the purpose of them is, and then maybe explain a bit in layer one, layer two. What
Hmm.
is the difference, and why are there even multiple chains? Why would I
Mm.
choose to go with one chain compared to the other? And we'll go to that in a second, which
Hmm.
chain we chose for Azqira and the purpose. But let's, if you could provide some background information on the different chains, the most common ones, and what the
Hmm.
applications and the differences are.
Sure. I would say the applications are actually very similar across, because essentially when you look at building ecosystem within Web3, the apps or the applications that you need to support this ecosystem is actually quite similar across many blockchains, but it does have its perks. So, let's look at the most popular blockchain, right, which is Bitcoin. Um, the Bitcoin network. Um, what's the purpose of it? It was the first blockchain to ever be created. It was created, of course, to actually transfer Bitcoin to mine Bitcoin as well. Um, what are the pros and cons of it? Let's say the the pro of it, I think, is that it has the deepest architecture in terms of the network is supported by tens of thousands of Bitcoin miners who are very diligent in mining Bitcoin, who almost have this cultish mindset to support the Bitcoin network. Um, but this also has a downside, right? Which is what happens when the price of Bitcoin drops and these people are actually making a loss while mining Bitcoin, which has happened before. And in these cases, these people actually turn off their miners momentarily.
I think that's a very, very interesting point. Sorry for cutting you off there. What is mining and why can it be not profitable? What does it mean that
Mm,
miners make a loss? How can this happen?
sure. So,
I thought
mining
Bitcoin is
is,
always going up. I thought it's only that way. So what's going on?
well,
How can we make a loss with Bitcoin?
I would say, first, mining is that you solve complex mathematical algorithms provided by the blockchain. By doing this, you actually verify different transactions that have happened on the blockchain, or that is either happening right now on the blockchain or that has happened before in the blockchain. You're re-verifying. And as a reward, you actually get Bitcoin. So this is Bitcoin mining. Of course, there are different mining, models, but this is the one for Bitcoin. Um, how can it make a loss? Well, because Bitcoin has halving, right? So it has halving, which means that by doing the same amount of work, you're actually getting rewarded half of what you used to get rewarded. But you think of it in terms of reverse, which is that to make the same amount of money as before, now your machines need to work twice as hard, which means you're using twice as much electricity for the same amount of money. So of course, electricity is not cheap. I mean, at least in most parts of the world, it's not that cheap. So it is possible for some people to actually mine Bitcoin, but at a loss because now they're spending more money on electricity, or their mining rigs could go out of fashion, could go out of warranty, and now they have to replace the machines. Um, and then obviously, if the price of Bitcoin reaches to a certain low level, then for many of these miners, it will actually be too much of a loss to actually mine Bitcoin. Then they will actually pause their operations, which actually slows down the Bitcoin network, which has happened before. Um, so it's also an interesting, I guess, this is not financial advice, but it's interesting to look at the Bitcoin shutdown price. This is actually what it's called. And the shutdown price of the previous halving cycle was 60K, and then now so now it's like 110, 120K. So you can kind of see that at certain levels, um, you can almost predict the natural, support level of the price of Bitcoin just by looking at the shutdown price. Um, so
Shutdown
yeah,
price meaning that is the zone where it becomes a loss or not profitable for the miners to keep mining.
yeah. So, usually shutdown price is it's going to be a bit different for different miners because, like some of them are new, some of them are old, so they use more electricity. But on average, it means that it's the price of Bitcoin where if it goes below that, then miners are making a loss. Most miners are making a loss. So that's Bitcoin. There's Ethereum, of course. I think Ethereum really made a name for itself because I think everyone remembers the ICO boom in 2017, 2018, early 2018 as well. Um,
You
and
say,
it,
sorry. I need to jump in every now and then. You
sure.
say everybody remembers the ICO boom in 2017, 2018. Some people have never heard even uh, from crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, ICO. What was the ICO boom like as a quick history in modern crypto? What happened in 2017, 2018?
Right. So ICO stands for Initial Coin Offering, which was a financial vehicle for different crypto companies to raise money. So they were able to pre-sell unlisted tokens to different investors, whether private or institutional. And they raised a lot of money there, and there was a lot of growing interest in overall blockchain industry and in crypto because the price of Bitcoin was going quite high back then. So a lot of people made a lot of money, a lot of companies made a lot of money, but also the other way was true. A lot of people lost a lot of money. The same for certain companies as well. Um, but you look at, okay, how did it boom? Like how did the scale of this happen? And it's all actually thanks to Ethereum. Because Ethereum came up with an ERC standard, which was the fact that you're able to make tokens very, very easily that uses Ethereum's sort of underlying infrastructure. So you could be a random person sitting at home, and now you can make your own token that will be able to be sent to people to be traded and do many other amazing things without ever having to worry about maintaining a server for yourself or to actually understand complex technology. So in a way, Ethereum created a massive machine that allows people to create their own tokens very, very easily. And this is why a lot of people did exactly that, and a lot of people also invested exactly in that as well. Um,
When did you hear? Because quick side, so you're an Ethereum OG. I know that you were like there from the very early stage. You're so humble in the way you explain things. When was Ethereum like started or founded, and when did you hear from it? And how was your involvement in the early stages of Ethereum?
um, I guess early stages of Ethereum. I mean, I participated in the private sale of Ethereum, or there was no real term such as private sale, the initial token sale of Ethereum. Um, and I was one of the people who was, fighting on with other people on different forums such as 4chan, Reddit, saying, oh, is this Vitalik guy an absolute moron or is he a genius? Why does he look like an alien? Is he an alien? Things like this. Um,
Is he?
say that was, I don't know, he's not an average person, I would say, but when you're Vitalik, concerning the creator of Ethereum, then I think you kind of don't really have to fit into any other people's standards, right? You have too much money for that. So, um, yeah, I think I was lucky to see, I guess, the beginning of Ethereum and kind of see like how it really started. But a lot of people don't know this, but when Ethereum actually first started, it didn't really have many users, right? Because it was like, okay, it's Ethereum, but Bitcoin was earlier, so like why should we pay attention to this whatever random coin from an alien looking guy, right? But if you actually look at the user metrics of Ethereum, it actually it kind of goes like this, and it suddenly jumps like that. And that's the moment when Ethereum came up with the ERC20 standard, which is the token standard, right? Then people flock to Ethereum because they're like, hey, I want to make my own token. I want to be able to sell my own, whatever random token I create to other people and make millions of dollars. So then a lot of people came to use Ethereum. And that I think really has been the beginning of Ethereum since. And I personally think that even now Ethereum is kind of leading the way in terms of coming up with new different token standards, right? Whether that would be NFTs, whether that is staking the contracts, um, um, DEXs, right? So the first ever DEX Uniswap was actually founded by the team that was supported by Ethereum Foundation. So I think it did make a lot of contributions in the blockchain space. And of course, there's then then there's Arbitrum, and then of course there's Solana, there's AVAX, but out of all these, there's also Base. But out of all these, I think when we move the conversation to layer one and layer two, Arbitrum and Base are the only layer twos in this situation. So what does layer two really mean? Is that it's layer two blockchains are its own blockchain, but it uses the infrastructure of another blockchain, of a layer one blockchain. So before, you could make your own token on top of Ethereum, right? But since a few years ago, you can make your own blockchain on top of Ethereum as well. Um, and Arbitrum and Base are two very good examples of this. So why should people, what's the purpose, right? Why is the layer two important? Mainly because what we have seen is that, and a lot of people are using Ethereum, for example, the price of gas is just too high. The transaction fee is too high, especially during the DeFi boom. To be able to make $50 worth of transaction, your fee would be like $120. This just doesn't make sense, right? So now what you're doing is, okay, so we make a blockchain on top of Ethereum, and then this blockchain produces this much data. We compress it, and then we fit it into one block of Ethereum. So what that really means is that now this one block of the Ethereum blockchain is able to process way more data than it was able to before because all the data came from the previous chain. It does all the computing and essentially feeds the proof to the Ethereum chain. So this was a way of, almost creating an entire like a micro universe inside a universe kind of thing. So
I
I
want to,
think,
I want,
yeah.
I want to, sorry, that was a fantastic um, explanation with layer one, layer two, how the compressing works, and then that you pay less gas. Gas, somebody explained it to me in the early beginning in a very nice way that was understandable for me, which is like when you're driving on a highway and you need to pay toll, like you need to
Mhm,
pay a certain amount to be allowed to use the highway with the small spin-off that when the highway is extremely busy, you need to pay more.
mhm,
So, and that picture for me was like, aha, okay, so I need to pay in Germany not, but in France and I think in Spain also, and in Switzerland, you need to pay to be allowed to use the highway.
mhm,
But the more cars are on the road, in the blockchain example, the more cars are on the road, the more expensive the usage of those roads are going to be. Do you agree with that explanation, or is there something wrong or something twisted in this one?
mm. I mean, I would, yeah, I mean, I would kind of say, yeah, that's a decent explanation. It misses a key ingredient though, which is the fact that it's not about being allowed to use the network. It's about how fast do you want to, not being allowed to use the highway. It's about how fast do you want to be able to use the highway,
Mm,
right? Because so instead of a usage fee, think of it as an incentive, right? So instead of a toll gate charging cars to use the highway, imagine that the toll gate is actually saying, okay, we have limited spots, a limited number of cars that can use our highway at the moment. Who wants to use it? Okay, you have to bid something.
mhm,
If you bid zero, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to even participate, right? If you bid $1 and if somebody bids $100, that person can go first. If there is no other cars before you and you have bid $1, then you can go with that, right? So it's really about the fact that people want to be able to make their transactions faster because there is usually a greater incentive at the end of the transaction.
mhm,
If everyone was super chill and they said, you know what, I don't care if my transaction goes through a 1 week from now on, then we wouldn't have this issue. But everyone's in a rush because there's usually some opportunity out there on in crypto. So I think this competition and the limited supply of transactions that can go through is the one that drives the gas fee.
fantastic. So that's because gas fee is definitely a term that people will stumble across more often
Of course,
when
yeah,
they're using crypto more and more, and when they want to send tokens from one place to the other.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay your fees. And in Ethereum, the fees are high compared to other layer two blockchains.
Hmm.
Let's divert a bit um, back to the decision of the chain. So um, that is something that is clearly a strategic decision by every company,
Hmm.
what they value the most, what they are looking for. And different blockchains, layer one or layer two, have different incentives. Um, I know you later tonight have another meeting with Solana, which is one option. And I would like you to explain a bit why we chose to go with Arbitrum,
Hmm.
and what the benefits are, and what we were looking for, and what questions you asked me maybe before we made the decision. At the end, obviously, your technical understanding and level is like on a whole different level than mine. Um, but when it comes to the decision of the chain, what are certain options, and why did we chose to go for Arbitrum?
Hmm. Um, I think that the key factors to consider when you're trying to choose which chain to use is, I mean, I'm just gonna list it in terms of my personal priority, but maybe for other people it'll be different. For me, number one is the number of developers in the developer community. And then number two is essentially
Sorry,
the
why is that relevant?
um mainly because if you don't have many developers who are developing on the chain, you will either struggle to find a decent developer who will work with you, or your technical progression will be way slower than other chains, right? Because you have more brains put together in the developer community. They'll usually come up with some cool idea, and then they'll develop it usually a lot faster. Um, so especially because I'm thinking in from the perspective of a builder, right? The number of developers in the developer community is very, very important because this gives you options when you're trying to develop a new product or build a new company such as Azqira. I would say the second most important is for me is the amount of attention this blockchain has. Maybe a lot of people think, oh, it's for marketing purposes, but it's really not, right? Because there are times when certain blockchains go wrong. There was a time when Solana as a blockchain was stopped for a few hours. There was a time when major
How
blockchains,
how can this happen? How can this happen?
well, it's mainly because Solana uses a bit of a different technical infrastructure than Ethereum. Um, so it's a bit of a different issue. But in general, it happens usually because you either have just too much backlog on the blockchain, so the entire network is almost too congested. Another I was Another case would be that you have an important sort of institutions usually that are supporting this blockchain and that are providing key infrastructural pillar in the blockchain network. And then for whatever reason, this institution hasn't, encountered some error, or their server gets flooded or whatever. Then basically you're missing this key pillar, so the entire network could be halted. Um, this doesn't happen on Ethereum because it uses a bit of a different infrastructure than Solana. Um, But the reason that I am saying about the interest really is in this, right? When a certain blockchain has enough interest, there are usually people who are always watching what is happening on the chain. So if something goes wrong, they will usually be able to flag it in, within 1 minute, and then they're going to be talking about it all the time, everywhere. So therefore, as somebody who is building on the blockchain, you're actually very grateful to them because who knows? Maybe, of course, you're going to be too busy building your own company. You're not going to be monitoring what's happening on the chain. But because of these people, now you know what's happening, and now you can try to mitigate the risk. So, I mean, that's the second important reason for me. And the third one is, of course, the TVL, or the total value locked in the blockchain. So what that means is how much money is in this blockchain? How much money are people spending, staking, locking in into this blockchain's ecosystem? Why is this important? Because usually people don't want to move assets from one blockchain to another blockchain. This is just a bit too complex for them, or I mean, these days it's not that complex, but it's just too cumbersome for most people. So if I have $50,000 on the Arbitrum network, I want to be able to use this $50,000 inside the Arbitrum network. So this is why, these are the three factors that, we have considered. And this is why we chose Arbitrum, right? Because it has great TVL. It has massive amounts of interest. But also what's important to note is that because Arbitrum uses Ethereum's infrastructure, there's a lot of Solidity developed. Solidity is the programming language that is used to develop on both Ethereum and on Arbitrum. So there's a lot of Solidity developers out there. So this is a great option for us.
And how's it possible that there can be different costs for gas, for example? I mean, you've explained the layer two, it compresses data, and then it gets cheaper. But how is there such a big difference in speed, also in the way the transactions are being executed, and how stable is it really when like the adoption is coming and more people are using it? Isn't it then getting just more expensive for everyone?
Um, I'm going to try to avoid technical explanation as much as possible. So let's go back to the highway example that you've shared, right? So now to use the highway, you need to pay, let's say, $100 per car. You could, for example, have your own car and you need to pay $100, or you could be sitting in a bus full of 50 people, and now these 50 people have to pay $2 each only because it's one bus, right? So this is exactly how it works. It compiles. Imagine that instead of people, these are data or financial transactions. You compress them, you put them into one bus, or that is the block, and then you actually feed this block to the main central infrastructure. Then the cost is actually divided and shared by many people, right? So this is exactly how the fee can always stay low. Um, would it get more expensive? Yeah, I mean there is always a scalability issue. Um, but it will not be as worse as in layer one in most cases, unless things go horribly wrong. But in most cases, the gas fee of layer two will always be cheaper than the gas fee of layer one.
Mhm. We have had some questions also in the chat that I need to run through quickly. Um, we will not go too much in detail about the tokenomics and the NFT token combination in Azqira, because we need a bit more time to go more in detail about that. There was a question from Carlos. For those of us who are not experts or that deep into blockchain tokens and the crypto world, what would you recommend as the minimums for us to master, learn, or research?
Hmm. Well, I guess number one thing to learn is how to um, create your own wallet, how to store it safely, how to keep your seed phrase and your private key safe from other people. Um, and then I guess the number two is then how to use this wallet, right? But I think also what is now becoming more growingly important is the types of, I would say, scams out there. Not like, oh, invest in this kind of scam, but there are now scammers are becoming so almost intelligent in the way that they use different social engineering tactics to make you do certain things that you shouldn't do. You turn around and you say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know why I did that." But a lot of this is mainly because of there's a lot of social engineering hacks out there, especially in crypto. So I think it is important, especially for new people, to understand that, hey, these are some of the common examples. So when somebody says this, when somebody requests this, when somebody says, hey, you need to send me this, when somebody says, hey, by the way, you have this thing, but you need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to get that thing, so you know that this is not legitimate. Um, because I have seen a lot of cases where a lot of newbies come in and then they get scammed almost like right away, and then they say, "Oh, crypto's full of scammers," and then they leave. And they have missed great opportunities, but it's also true it is full of scammers as well. Um, but I think with right amount of awareness and knowledge, I think this can be avoided.
Fantastic. Great, great answer. Well, I'll just go through some more questions. Um, let's start with another one from Alejandro. How do you see Azqira project fits in real-world asset tokenization strategy, and what added value do you see in the context of the crypto space?
Hmm. Okay. Um, I think Azqira provides a unique opportunity for people to be able to hold assets in the real world while using their crypto assets. I think this is very, very rare. Only in very small amount of countries you can even, for example, purchase real estate with crypto. In most cases, you can't do it directly. They usually use like a brokerage. But Azqira kind of allows you that level of access where, you know, this magic internet money can suddenly buy you very real, magical pieces of, hospitality destinations and assets out there, right? So I think the opportunity itself is quite important to note. And I think in terms of when you think of, okay, well, how about the reverse? What value is Azqira bringing to Web3? Um, I think there are two things. The first one is that now people will be able to achieve greater balance in how the portfolio is positioned. So now, you look at people's crypto portfolio and then it's like, you have this much Bitcoin, you have this much Ethereum, blah, blah, blah. But imagine that now you add very real, assets that exist in the real world that is revenue generating, um, then your portfolio becomes much stronger. And when you have a stronger portfolio, people can usually do more. And I believe that, with Azqira as a model in Web3, now there will be a new way of bringing further financial stability within the Web3 by leveraging real world assets. And this could, for example, attract more people into Web3, right? Because instead of all the assets going like crazy all the time, there could be certain assets that are growing like in value, right? So imagine like, for example, look at stocks, for example. Before Wall Street, people were not really into stocks. They're like, why would I buy this useless piece of paper? I don't understand the value of it. But now it's a huge market. Why is that? Because it was initially a strange financial concept, but those people who understood it were able to not only buy and trade stocks, but were able to leverage stocks to unlock more financial opportunities. And I think similar things will happen in Web3 things, that's clear.
And I think it's also important to mention that we are extremely different. Like you and myself, I mean, besides you wearing a black hoodie, I'm wearing a white hoodie. Like we couldn't be more different
I was
in
thinking of wearing a white hoodie today, but yeah.
we are we are so different in the way we look at like projects. And I think that is also one thing. If you meet someone in the future, you'll barely see a person with a with a purer heart than Siwon. I love the guy. He really in the last 3 years he became a very very close friend, and we are so different, and that's I think also the beauty of our relationship, and it also shows in the way we are building our businesses. We are in the same industry, but we are building it in vastly different ways. So I would say I'm a bit more old school in my approach compared to you. Um, but in order to explain how that is translating into the business, can you maybe share what differences do you see from the normal crypto bro approach to maybe my old school input sometimes, where you're
Mhm.
scratching your head and be like, Tom, you're too web two for this one, right? Like
I,
you need
I,
to
don't- I
leave
don't
it.
I don't scratch my head. I bang my head against the wall. But yeah, um, I think the time when I felt it the most really is about the way we think of innovation, right? What is, or what is innovative and how should you deal with innovation? I think my approach usually is, hey, we need to be innovative. This means that we need to be fast. Let's move fast. Let's try to accomplish certain goals right now. Doesn't really matter how we do it. Let's get our hands dirty. Let's just get messy and get it done. And then once we get it done, we'll be able to look back and say, oh, we should have optimized it like this. I think with your approach, you tend to take more time and say, okay, well, this is the goal that I want to accomplish, but how should I do this? What is the right way? What's the the proper way of doing this? And so for me, it's like I try to get there fast and I look back and optimize. But then for you, you plot and optimize first and then you get there. So essentially, at the end of the day, it's actually we're taking the exact same amount of time. It's just that for me, I'm gonna reach there faster and then take extra time to optimize what happened in the past. For you, you may get there slower, but you have already done the optimization at that point.
Mm.
So yeah, I think this is the biggest differences that I see.
And also from the approach of like, um, I try to use the technology to build like a bit in an old schooler environment, because
Hmm.
real estate is like traditionally, and especially hospitality, it's a stiff industry, like
Mm,
I spoke about this in multiple podcasts before, that when I go to hospitality conferences, oftentimes there are a lot of people in with gray hair and suits, while in crypto you find people with like, depending on the wallet and the amount of money they have, in Ferraris, Lambos, and Louboutin shoes, and nobody's wearing a suit
mm,
besides Brian Rose, who's a legend, obviously. But um, to bring those people together on the one side, for me personally, is extremely satisfying, because I feel that's where the magic happens. Like
mm,
when you bring a Siwon who's like a leader in the Web3 industry, and for me one of the brightest minds I've ever been in touch with like a Brian who's 25 years in hotel acquisition and has done billions of transaction volume, but in a very old school traditional way, and to merge all of this for me is super fun and super exciting. And I think also that's my perspective is that that is the way how we get to more mass adoption, not by
mm,
staying on the one side and say, hey, we are cooking our own soup and screw the old system, like we are the future, but like in bringing the people together and um, trying to work together. We had
mm.
a another question um, regarding cyber security. Maybe you can speak about Azqira, but you can also say um, more general about newly launching projects, which phases they are going through, especially in terms of security from the start to the like when they are having more adoption. Maybe a bit of the journey and the cybersecurity part when it comes to launches.
Um, I guess there are, well, I mean, I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of somebody who's building a company, right?
Mhm. Yes.
There are two major components to cybersecurity. I'm just going to say security. Cybersecurity sounds a bit too niche here. Um, Two major components to consider when you're trying to make a project as secure as possible. Um, Number one is essentially the DevOps, right? So in which sort of operation are your developers building? What kind of environment do they have, right? So making sure that the key developers involved in building a project is actually, has a safe digital environment away from potential hacks and exploits to be able to build the product that we're trying to make. And then the second part is essentially in terms of how the code performs, right? So these developers now work in a safe environment. Their computers weren't hacked, their phones weren't hacked. They developed codes. Now you need to make sure that number one, these different codes, I mean, there are different developers they'll put in that work on, there not many of them will write the entire product's smart contract by themselves. They'll actually work together. So now you need to see, okay, will this, all the different sections, will they compile well together? And when they get compiled, maybe each individual components will work well, but when they're compiled, maybe they won't, right? So there's a compilation issue. And then last but not least is, of course, the audit of it, right? Then, okay, our code compiles well. It does exactly what it's intended to do. But is it safe from other smart hackers out there, who would try to, make our system do certain things that it's not meant to do? Maybe there are certain logical flaws. Maybe there are certain loopholes in terms of how the code is developed that can be exploited. So I think these are the major components. So most projects go through all three of these before they launch. Most successful projects then do the audit at least once a year. Some of them do like twice a year, just to make sure that there are new hacking methods out there being developed. So you always need to stay alert and sort of stay front-footed. So yeah, that's usually the kind of journey.
Fantastic. Then we had some more questions, multiple ones regarding wallets, wallet brand. How risky is it to share your wallet with the wrong person? Um, how will Azqira provide a wallet, or will we have to get one? Maybe you can share a bit generally your thoughts on which wallet to choose. I personally recommend people, and probably you will say this is you would recommend a different way. Let's say it like that. When I get speak with people who want to get into crypto the first time, I just tell them create a Coinbase account. It's high fees. It's not the best solution, but it's a very user-friendly option as a starting point. Put 500 euros in there and just waste it and burn it. Like buy stuff, lose stuff, send money left and right. Just become a user to get a feel. But when it comes to the choice of the wallet, you said you have 100 different ones on a daily basis that you're using. I'm sure there are multiple different companies that you're using for this. So, what would be your suggestion, especially for people when they start? And what wallet options are we using, and why?
Um, well, when they start, definitely use MetaMask. Super simple to use. I think a lot of people buy like what hardware wallets, of course. But to be fair, unless you have like decent amount of money, I don't think hardware wallets are that safe, to be honest. Um, mainly, I mean, it is safe, but also there were multiple instances when hardware wallet companies had their customer data get leaked. So like people were getting fake emails from Ledger, from Trezor, and so on. So I mean, there are of course different negative outcomes to the wallets that you use. But I would recommend MetaMask because it's the most commonly used one. Um, For Azqira, we're also going to be using the framework of the MetaMask, but also we're going to allow people to use their social media profile to be able to either generate a wallet or to log into a wallet. So, for example, when you're using MetaMask, you forget your private key, you forget your seed phrase, then the wallet's lost. But we're going to allow people to use their social media account as a backup key to be able to access their account. So,
How is that safe?
I mean, so let me continue with that, right? So that's not safe. It's for the convenience. So each part of convenience needs to be met with each part of security to make it a viable solution. So the security part that we're using is that when you log in using your social media account, when you make and then you try to actually access the wallet and make transactions, you will actually be asked to provide a 6-digit PIN code that you have preset. So even if somebody who has access to whatever your Twitter account or whatever, as they will not have the 6-digit PIN code because it's actually in your head, right? You probably don't need to write it down. I mean, all of us use 6-digit PIN code for, for our phones in most cases. Um, so this is the security element that we're bringing in.
Fantastic. So that is one option. The other option is obviously for people to create their own wallet
Yeah,
elsewhere and connect this. So there's
yeah,
there's two
they can also
options.
do this.
Azqira is providing a convenient solution to the people who are starting their journey with an increased security layer and protection, but there's still the option to have a wallet outside of Azqira and then connect it to the application. Then we had a question: um, do you find Binance good? What kind of cold wallet you advise for Bitcoin, crypto? I heard Ledger is the best.
I mean, you can get Ledger, sure. Um, the let's say like this, the core concept of all hardware wallets is the same. It's the exact same, right? So in most cases, people would choose dependent on design. But for example, you could go with a wallet brand that is not very well known, but it'll actually use the exact same technology as Ledger. So it's really up to you. Is Binance good in terms of what, right? In terms of storing your money there? Yeah, probably. Um, if Binance fails, I mean, I'm not saying it's not gonna fail, but if it fails, then all of us will lose a lot of money. So why not? Why not your money goes with that as well? Join the sadness party. Um, is it good in terms of trading experience? Yeah. Are they good in terms of, AML and KYC? No, this is why they got in big trouble. All exchanges will have different challenges that they're trying to solve, and they'll have different um, levels of failure, right? So you just have to understand that, okay, if this exchange fails in this area, how will it affect me, right? When Binance failed to meet their AML requirements, they were fine, but user funds were okay, right? So this is just some of the things that you just have to kind of take, right? You could, for example, go with not very well-known exchange that is very well backed by government, but who knows, maybe this exchange will no longer exist the next day, right? So is Binance good? I don't know. I use Binance, yeah, sure.
I could chat with you for really hours. We're already like past 1 hour, and there are more and more questions coming in. There's also I could talk with you for hours about generally this topic. I think we briefly, maybe even like lightly scratched the surface from the topics. Like this time, no blue cars and red cars, and when they meet at this specific point, you killed me with this one last time. But anyway, um, we will do this more often. We will have this frequently, either every month or every second month, because we also want to have from other departments, thought leaders, experts from the field of hospitality and also from the tech space. But please let us know if you're in the inner circle or if you're in the global group or wherever you are, from wherever you're watching. We would love to hear your feedback. And next time, also get more questions up front so we can structure them a bit better. This was freestyle today on Riverside as a new platform, not on Google Meets anymore. The only time, as I said, we used Riverside was when Siwon and me recorded the podcast. And then I have just an important last question. When are you back in Berlin?
I would say early March.
Early March. Good.
Yeah,
So we're gonna see us. So we're gonna see us early March.
looking forward.
Berlin is missing you. But it feels like Korea sucked you in the last few months, huh?
It's comfortable. Life is comfortable in Korea.
And we still need to go out in Korea. I still have that on my list. I'll get back to your invitation. I'll pick you up on this one. No, Siwon,
Awesome.
thank you so much on behalf of everyone. You're really you're a great person. You're very inspiring. I love chatting with you. I enjoy speaking and learning from people that are way smarter than I am. And you are definitely one of them. I really appreciate you, your blessing. I'm very happy that you're part of our circle, that call you a friend. And all the best. Enjoy the meeting at Solana in a minute. And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Talk
Take
to you
care.
later.
Bye bye.
Bye.